Why America and Iran hate each other. The full story. Right now, the United States and Iran are at war. On February 28, 2026, American and Israeli forces launched the largest military operation in the Middle East since the invasion of Iraq, killing Iran's supreme leader and striking targets across the country. But this didn't come out of nowhere. The hatred between America and Iran has been building for over 70 years. Coups, hostages, assassinations, proxy wars, nuclear standoffs, and now, open military conflict. This is the full story of how the United States and Iran became the bitterest enemies on Earth. It might surprise you to learn that America and Iran used to be friends. In the early 1900s, the United States had no colonial history in Iran, unlike Britain and Russia, who had been exploiting the country for decades. Iranians actually looked to America as a symbol of democracy and freedom. When Iran's oil was discovered in 1908, it was the British who seized control, creating the Anglo-Persian Oil Company and extracting Iran's wealth while Iranians saw almost nothing in return. America at that point was still on the sidelines. Everything changed in 1953, the original sin. Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, nationalized the oil industry, taking it back from the British. Britain was furious and wanted him gone. They convinced the CIA to help. In August 1953, the CIA and British intelligence orchestrated a coup that overthrew Mossadegh and restored the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, to full power. It was the moment that poisoned everything. America had destroyed Iran's democracy to protect Western oil interests. Iranians would never forget it. For the next 25 years, the Shah ruled Iran as America's closest ally in the Middle East. The U.S. poured billions into Iran: weapons, technology, nuclear reactors. In 1957, the U.S. even helped Iran set up SAVAK, its feared secret police force, which tortured and killed thousands of political dissidents. America also provided Iran with nuclear technology through the Atoms for Peace program, the very foundation of the nuclear program that would later terrify the world. The Shah modernized Iran at breakneck speed, but behind the glamour was a brutal dictatorship. And Iranians knew exactly who was propping him up: the United States of America. By the late 1970s, the Iranian people had had enough. Mass protests erupted across the country. On January 16, 1979, the Shah fled Iran. 2 weeks later, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khamenei returned from 15 years of exile to establish the Islamic Republic of Iran. America had lost its most important ally in the Middle East overnight. But the worst was yet to come. On November 4, 1979, Iranian students stormed the American embassy in Tehran and took 52 Americans hostage. They demanded the U.S. hand over the Shah, who had been admitted to America for cancer treatment. The hostage crisis lasted 444 days. Americans watched in horror on their television screens every single night. It humiliated the United States, destroyed Jimmy Carter's presidency, and created a hatred between the two nations that has never healed. The hostages were finally released on January 20, 1981, the exact moment Ronald Reagan was sworn in as president. America and Iran severed diplomatic ties. They have never been restored. In 1980, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Iran, starting one of the bloodiest wars since World War II. The Iran-Iraq War lasted 8 years and killed over 1 million people, and the United States backed Iraq. America provided Saddam with intelligence, weapons, and diplomatic cover, even after he used chemical weapons on Iranian soldiers and civilians. For Iran, this was the ultimate betrayal. America had destroyed their democracy, armed their dictator, and now it was helping their enemy gas them to death. The war ended in 1988 with no winner, just devastation. Then came one of the most tragic incidents in the entire history of U.S.-Iran relations. On July 3, 1988, the USS Vincennes, an American warship in the Persian Gulf, shot down Iran Air Flight 655, a civilian passenger plane. All 290 people on board were killed, including 66 children. The United States said it was an accident. The crew had mistaken the airliner for a fighter jet. Iran called it a deliberate act of murder. The U.S. never formally apologized. For Iranians, it was proof that American lives mattered, and Iranian lives did not. This incident is still remembered in Iran every single year. In 1984, the Reagan administration had officially designated Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism after a bombing in Beirut killed 241 American service members. The attack was carried out by Hezbollah, the Lebanese militia that Iran had created and funded. But then came the scandal. Behind the scenes, the Reagan administration was secretly selling weapons to Iran in exchange for the release of American hostages held by Hezbollah in Lebanon. The profits from those arms sales were then funneled to right-wing rebels in Nicaragua. When the Iran-Contra affair was exposed, it was one of the biggest political scandals in American history. America was publicly calling Iran a terrorist state while privately selling it weapons. Through the 1990s and 2000s, the relationship swung between hostility and near breakthroughs. In 1997, reformist President Mohammad Khatami was elected in Iran and signaled a desire for dialogue. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright even acknowledged the U.S. role in the 1953 coup, a groundbreaking admission. But Iranian hardliners rejected the overture. Then came September 11, 2001. Iran actually helped the United States after the attacks, cooperating against their mutual enemy, the Taliban in Afghanistan. For a brief moment, there was hope. But in January 2002, President George W. Bush destroyed it all with 3 words: axis of evil. Bush lumped Iran together with Iraq and North Korea as the greatest threats to world peace. Iran was stunned. They had just helped America, and this was the thanks they got. The nuclear crisis became the defining issue. In 2002, the world discovered that Iran had been secretly building nuclear facilities. Iran insisted the program was for civilian energy. The West didn't believe them. Years of escalating sanctions followed, devastating Iran's economy and punishing ordinary Iranians. Iran's currency collapsed. Medicine became scarce. The middle class was destroyed. But the regime held firm, and the nuclear program continued. In 2015, a breakthrough, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal. After years of negotiations, Iran agreed to limit its uranium enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief. President Obama called it a historic achievement. Iran's moderates celebrated. For the first time in decades, there was genuine hope that America and Iran could find a path forward. Then Donald Trump killed it. In May 2018, Trump withdrew the United States from the nuclear deal and reimposed what he called maximum pressure sanctions, the toughest sanctions in history. Iran's economy cratered. Oil exports plummeted. Inflation skyrocketed. Iran responded by gradually increasing its uranium enrichment beyond the deal's limits. The diplomatic path was dead. On January 3, 2020, President Trump authorized a drone strike at Baghdad International Airport that killed General Qasem Soleimani, Iran's most powerful military commander and the architect of its entire proxy war network across the Middle East. It was the most significant American killing of a foreign military leader since World War II. Iran vowed severe revenge and launched ballistic missiles at U.S. military bases in Iraq. The two countries came closer to all-out war than at any point since the hostage crisis. Over 100 U.S. troops suffered traumatic brain injuries from the Iranian missile strikes, though no Americans were killed. Through 2021 to 2024, attempts to revive the nuclear deal failed. Iran continued enriching uranium to near weapons-grade levels. Tensions escalated further when Iran provided drones to Russia for use in the Ukraine war. Iran's proxy forces, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, became more aggressive. When Hamas attacked Israel on October 7, 2023, and Israel launched a devastating war in Gaza, Iran was drawn deeper into the conflict. In 2024, Iran and Israel exchanged direct military strikes for the first time in history. In June 2025, a 12-day war erupted between Iran and Israel, with American strikes targeting Iranian nuclear facilities. Trump claimed Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated, but concerns persisted. Diplomatic talks continued in Muscat, Oman, and later in Geneva. Then in late December 2025, Iran's economy collapsed and massive protests erupted, the largest since 1979. The regime responded with a massacre, killing thousands of its own citizens. Trump warned that help was on the way. Nuclear talks fell apart. The military buildup began, the largest concentration of American air and naval power in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, a massive joint military strike targeting sites across Iran. Over 200 Israeli fighter jets and American bombers struck more than 500 targets in at least 14 Iranian cities. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed, along with senior IRGC commanders. President Trump announced the strikes with a stated goal of regime change, the first time an American president had explicitly called for the overthrow of the Iranian government through military force. Iran launched retaliatory strikes on U.S. bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar. 3 American soldiers were killed. The Middle East was engulfed in its most dangerous crisis in generations. And so here we are. 73 years after the CIA overthrew Iran's democracy, America has now killed Iran's supreme leader. The two countries that were once allies, that America once helped build nuclear reactors for, are now locked in open warfare. Every single chapter of this conflict traces back to decisions, betrayals, and miscalculations on both sides. The 1953 coup, the hostage crisis, the Iran-Iraq war, the nuclear standoff, the Soleimani assassination, and now, the strikes of February 2026. The question is no longer why America and Iran hate each other. The question is, can they ever stop? Thank you for watching. If this video helped you understand the most dangerous conflict in the world right now, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to see it. Drop a comment below. Do you think there's any path to peace? We'll see you in the next one.